So this is Flow. It's a brilliant book. The title, Flow, the Psychology of Optimal Experience, or illuminates the way to happiness. It kind of makes it seem a bit like a self-help book, but it's not. It's real psychology. And he kind of establishes that straight away. Don't expect this to just be a self-help book. As I read this initially, I thought, okay, this is all well and good, but this will only work if you have kind of unlimited leisure time, which of course very few of us have. But actually it's about finding those flow states, finding those times in what you're doing where you can just take stock and be truly happy with what you're doing. And it gives you some tips on how to create these, what he calls flow experiences, these optimal experiences. And actually we can all find those flow states in the things that we're doing. And the idea behind this in schools is that it's going to help us with what you call differentiation, which is changing tasks to different people's personal abilities or personal levels or just personal interests or styles of learning. So I got first put onto this by somebody at my school who's interested in this as an idea of how we can better personalize learning. And he talks very specifically about how tasks can be differentiated to enable individuals to get more out of them. And as a teacher, I got loads out of that chapter on differentiation, about the complexity and about the growth of the self. There's this kind of interesting diatribe between what you think will make you happy and what actually will make you happy. And he talks about the child's absolute joy at learning new things. And that's easier perhaps when they're very young, trying out new skills and succeeding. But when we get to secondary schools, it becomes a bit harder to make those experiences so positive for them every single time. But in short, happiness is what we experience when we grow. And I think this is why as a leader, I enjoy developing people so much. So what exactly is a flow state? We've all experienced it. It's those times when you completely lose track of time, where 4 hours of work can feel like 10 minutes. And it's extremely satisfying. You feel afterwards like you've been refreshed, but you feel absolutely awful when you're wrenched out of that situation by external circumstances. For us in schools, it's where life is punctuated by these bells. And you could think that the traditional model of a school with 1 hour lessons and 5 lessons a day makes it really hard to achieve these optimal experiences, these flow states. There's a lot of research that's gone into this book, and a lot of it comes from people self-reporting when they've had these flow experiences, and explaining how they got into them, how they felt during it, and how it came to an end. And from that, there's loads of advice that Mihaly gives for getting into those flow states and extending them for as long as possible, and making them the most constructive and useful as they can be. And the interesting thing for me as a teacher is the focus on that tasks must have immediate feedback to be able to give you that flow state, which is quite hard to do in the classroom. But for example, when you're playing tennis, you get that immediate feedback when a shot goes well, or a shot doesn't go so well. And you can immediately try and make the next shot better. Or in art, when you're drawing something and you get that immediate feedback that it's starting to look like whatever it is that you're drawing, or that it's not, and you need to make a few changes to get it to that point where it does look like whatever you're drawing. So he gives a definition of the flow state and a set of conditions which seem to be necessary to create that flow state. They need to be tasks that we have a chance of completing. We have to be able to concentrate on what we're doing. And the concentration is made possible because the goals are clear and there's immediate and continuous feedback. It's a deep but effortless involvement, which removes awareness of the worries and frustrations of everyday life. The people exercise a sense of control over their actions. Concern for the self disappears. Yet paradoxically, the sense of the self emerges stronger after the flow experience is over. And the sense of the duration of time is altered. Hours pass by in minutes. So one tip that he gives to try and achieve these states is to find experiences which are autotelic, which means rewarding in themselves. A literal meaning of autotelic would be self-goal. And these experiences get you to that state where you forget yourself, where you lose track of time, and you feel at one with the task and connected to something bigger. And I think that's the important one. I recommend this book to you. But if you just take this from this video, the idea that you enjoy your hobbies because you get those immediate feedback, you get that response, that ability to succeed, and you lose yourself in that time. But there's an intrinsic reward to having done that. And you emerge calmer and happier and more satisfied afterwards. And if you can find those flow states in your life, find that hobby that makes you lose track of time, you'll find yourself a lot happier than just, let's say, watching TV. And in fact, he talks a lot about the difference between an autotelic experience, a flow state, and just watching TV, which is incredibly passive and has no goal or reward or feedback. There's a link to this book in the description and a link to Audible, because although I've read this one on an actual physical copy, I read most of the time these days by listening to audiobooks, and that's because I don't get time very often to sit and read, which sitting and reading is an ideal flow state. So finding time to sit and read this in between having to look after the kids and do all the housework and my job and everything like that has been a really rewarding experience. But it's not been easy to make that time for it. But for me, I do get a couple of hours every day in the car commuting, and I can listen to Audible. So there's an Audible link for a free trial in the description as well, which both of these are affiliate links, so I just get a small payment if you use either of those links to actually make a purchase or to start the free trial. And although this book itself isn't on Audible, I've put a link to a book by him, which is actually in the description as well.